Alright guys, next game is ready. It is going to be on Whirlwind, which is the map that ended up being the sole map remaining after the veto process. This is going to be Leon, the purple Terran player, spawning in the top right position here, up against Sjaak, the green Protoss. Sjaak is a Grandmaster level player, for those who didn't know. He was top Master level player for a long time, so congratulations to him to finally hit that GM. It must feel really good. And of course Leon, top Master level player, Terran player, so we should see a pretty good game here with nice executions. Now, one thing on Whirlwind that I'm always curious about is, are we going to see a command center first? Because a command center first in TVP on Whirlwind is a pretty good build. There's not a lot of things, if you execute that correctly, not a lot of things that can actually kill you. All you have to do is just be very good with your scouting. But wow, Leon, he's getting a refinery first. Oh my goodness. Okay, we could potentially see some cloaked banshee shenanigans. A refinery first. That means quick factory, usually. It can also mean a quick starport straight afterward, because you will get a little bit ahead on your gas count compared to what you normally would have had. And I'm just so anxious to see what where Leon is going with this, basically. Whereas Sjaak, well, he's going to just be doing a very normal thing. And wow, this is also a greedy build by Sjaak, because look at this, he just gets the gateway, and he's not going to follow that up with a gas. He's going to be getting an expansion right here. So a gateway expansion before core. Right, and wow, Sjaak is actually... This is a really interesting thing, a really interesting way to rally your probes onto the gas. And Sjaak will get lucky. He will scout his opponent on the first try, which is always good if you can manage to do that, especially on maps that have 4 spawn point locations. You never want to scout your opponent on the last possible try, because then you pretty much get no scouting done. But even so, Sjaak probably going to lose that probe, yeah. And so he did not see all that much. We can actually check. He only saw those 2 supply depots, but that alone should give him the inkling that there is some tech being hidden behind that wall. And Sjaak is really unhappy about the fact that he doesn't know what is going on, and yeah, it's going to be a quick starport. But instead of getting cloaked banshees, we are seeing Leon open up with widow mines, so probably a quick widow mine drop, a widow mine expansion, if you will. As the expansion Nexus 4, Sjaak is finishing up. And with the cyber core delayed, you know, this might do a lot of damage. A lot of damage, because Sjaak's detection will be delayed by quite some margin. I mean, even if he got the robo facility right now, the observer would not be out until 6:15 or 6:20. And by that time, this widow mine drop would have already been inside his base, especially if Leon uses boost. And since Sjaak has no idea this is coming, remember, Sjaak has had 0 scouting information. The only thing he can do right now is try and scout with his mothership core, as he needs the rest of his units right here. Now the robo facility going down at 5:45. That's not going to be in time to stop this widow mine from burrowing. Oh, the probe will it sees the medevac. Was Sjaak paying attention? I think he was. He did have that probe selected, and he does see the expansion timing right now. And his only chance basically is to focus down the medevac. The boosters are on cooldown currently, and this is all buying time for Sjaak. He could have gone in and just tried to unload the units, but no, he's going to be playing it safe and getting out of there. Well, that is really unfortunate for Leon, because that way he is at a huge disadvantage right now. If we look at the harvester count, it's 26 versus 31 probes, and Sjaak will be dumping most of his chrono boost into the nexuses to get as many probes out as possible. And you know, with this opening, Leon delayed his economy greatly. It is true that he has access to very early medevacs here. That much is true, but what good is it going to do to him? If the Protoss player at this point, Sjaak could go for a 2-base all-in, and it would probably end up being successful with the stim timing delayed. We see the stim only just now going down, and it takes about 3 minutes to complete. So the stim is delayed by almost 4 minutes compared to a normal expansion. And yeah, since Sjaak does have an econ lead, what he could do is just cut probes once he is saturated and go for a 2-base all-in. He's getting armor from the Forge and continuing on with a Twilight Council. That's a very, very, very fast Twilight Council, considering the upgrade for the armor is not even 50% done. And Sjaak is still continuing to produce probes, so let's see if he wants to take a 3rd base. Now, look at the unit counts though from Sjaak. Only 1 Zod, 5 Stalkers, nothing else. He's got observers positioned quite well. He's got full scouting information. He knows about everything that is going on. Quick Templar archives. We should see charge being researched, and +2 shortly here. And now the question is, will Sjaak take a 3rd base or not? Probably, yeah. He is going to be taking a 3rd base. Leon is doing so as well. Gets a good observer snipe here, so that's good for Leon. Trying to keep your opponent in the dark as much as possible is always a good thing. Unfortunately for Leon, Sjaak has an abundance of observers out on the map now. Sjaak, with that Templar archives finishing up and taking a 3rd base, he will have to warp in 2 High Templars and immediately morph them into Archons upon seeing this push coming, because ideally he wants to be going for Storm, but he also needs to stay alive until such a time that he gets there. Very fast overcharge here we are seeing, and probably the 3rd Nexus will have to be cancelled, so this is all good for Leon. There we have the Archon morphing. This is all good for Leon, because since he fell a little bit behind at the start with the economy, he needs to get back into this. And having your expansion finished up, or finishing up, just when your opponent's expansion is only starting to be put down, starting construction. That means you have triple mules, you have triple SCV production, you can max out on probe saturation way quicker than your opponent, and then you can only focus on tech and units. Predominantly units in the case of Terran, because Terran is a very, very mechanical race. So you can see the 3rd base being built here yet again, and so far, well, Sjaak, the only map control he's got is with these observers. Look at his vision. He only sees basically what he wants to see. He's covering the drop paths with units and observers. He scouted the 3rd base, and that is all. Storm just now going down, multiple additional gateways being added on, and a Dark Shrine, wow. So, Sjaak definitely knows that very quickly it could happen in the next couple of minutes that he will be outnumbered regarding army size as soon as Leon's macro kicks in and the income from the 3rd base. So he's going into Dark Shrine and potentially a couple of DT Warpins, or maybe even a Warpism harassment, could keep his opponent on the back foot and prevent him from getting too big of a lead and too strong of a lead as the game goes on. So far, both players only just posturing, 2 Zods being sent out. Sjaak really wants to know where the army is and if there's a 4th base being put down. We'll have to defend this base, and oh, this is a cute move by Leon, only sending 1 Marine up there. Very nice. You never want to move up a ramp unless you know what is awaiting you there, because that way you will just get stormed to death and outright die. Now, one thing of note is the lack of upgrades for Leon. This is a thing that might cost him actually the game later on. But right now he's trying to drop. There are already 5 Zealots here warped in. Sjaak is just too good with his observer positioning, and you know, if Leon manages at any point in the game to get rid of all the observers, then he can start dropping. But he needs to start looking for them. I mean, the observers are barely visible, so if you're not paying attention, you're not going to see them, but still, you should start looking for them. So the Ghost Academy is finished, the Mobius reactor is almost finished as well, and the armory only just now finishing at 14 minutes 47 seconds. So only just now is it that Leon can move into two upgrades, whereas Sjaak already has +3 armor and +1 ground weapons on its way, and already has Colossus transition in the works. We can see 2 robo facilities here. Here is the robotic bay. And right now Sjaak, who is at 143 supply, he will be rounding up his army composition with pretty much Archons and Colossus. He's got 4 High Templar. Might be wise to warp in 4 more somewhere in the back and let them gather up energy, and after a fight you just add those into your newly warped in army and you re-engage. You never want to go back from a fight empty-handed and go back to nothing. You always want to have military reserves, so to speak. DT is also trying to do a little bit of magic out on the map currently, but not being very successful, as Leon does have detection in all of his bases. And we can see that just from the economy standpoint, Sjaak is still maintaining the lead that he practically got for free in the early game. Just really just a build order win for him in that regard. Scan, scan, scan. Come on, Leon, get that obs. Oh my god, no, it's not. That's not gonna happen. So a little bit of a Zealot run by. DTs do not work, so let me just use Zealots because they are not as fragile as the DTs. And actually, with +3 armor finished up, those Zealots will be pretty hard to kill unless there are any units here. Those SCVs will not be able to kill these Zealots. All of those SCVs actually might die trying to kill those Zealots. So as the harassment is initiated, we can see Leon pulling back slightly. And I really love what Sjaak is doing here. He's constantly being active, not with his main army. He's keeping his main army here and just kind of ramping up the unit count there. But he's constantly keeping a little bit of supply here for the warpins he can use for harassment such as this, and just keep Leon on his toes, prevent him from being all too comfortable. Because Leon, you know, he's got a pretty good map awareness and pretty good map presence at this point in time. But he failed to scout the 3rd location. He's trying to look for war prisms right now, maybe, or maybe pylons. And all of this is unfortunately pulling his army out of position. So Sjaak is keeping his opponent up on his toes, getting the ideal composition. And you know, at this point where both players are approaching the 200 food mark, or population marks, should I say, it's going to come down to micro and engagements. Now, Whirlwind, depending on where you engage on Whirlwind, can favor Terran or Protoss. Obviously, the Terran player wants to engage in these open areas so that force fields are not as effective. He's got plenty of room to kite away from the Zealots, stay away from the range of the storms, and have pretty big space to maneuver his Vikings around and get Pachas and Colossi. Colossus, what are you doing? Go home, you're drunk. So right now Leon is trying to push in, but good storms from Sjaak keeping him at bay. Leon forced to move forward with the ghosts, but he gets fed back. Does get a couple of High Templars as a result. Good EMP there. How many High Templars are actually remaining? We do have a couple of them, but they get EMP'd. Only one storm here landing onto the infantry. One more remaining. There it goes. And Leon, well, realizing he just does not have enough. Furthermore, he got Zealot and DT run-bys in his natural base, and at his 3rd he was losing SCVs very rapidly. So he realized that, well, I lose this fight very much. I come back to a battered economy, I don't have a fourth base, and I will have no money to rebuild what I lost. Pretty much what it came down to. Congratulations to Sjaak for advancing into the next round, and commiserations, Leon. But you put up a really good fight, I have to say. You had a really good idea. You know, the build order was just solid. Just the execution was a little bit lacking at times, and first and most of all, Sjaak was just too smart about what he was doing there for Leon to overcome.